Hello everyone! We are going to be covering the top tiers for Splatoon 2. This is of the latest version 5.5 in all modes, generally basing around competitive team environments or very high ranked top 500 solo queue. We have covered all of these weapons, all the subs, all the specials, and all the abilities, so if you want to see those first, check out the playlist in the description, and with that all being said, let's get into the best weapons in the game. Now, Ink Fresh is really good for distracting people. It's mainly just your get behind and annoy the enemy team. It gets a fast baller. The baller is light, so it's fast. Ink Brush can roll through enemy ink without taking damage. It's good at killing people in close range, so it can fight things like shooters, which, as you're going to see later, is pretty important. The special is not the greatest, but it works so well for the main weapon that it puts it here. And mines are really nice for it, especially in zones. The main thing that this weapon can struggle in is tower control, and also just outputting a good special, I should say, is another problem for it, because it doesn't really give you an armor or a missile or a bomb rush or a booyah bomb. But it's still really solid. It's still perfectly capable of fighting shooters right now. It's just a little bit tougher since you don't have as much stuff like a charger to flank all the time. H3D, I could see this weapon being a tier higher in the future. It really just depends on how H3D players push it. But unfortunately right now, most H3 players are just playing Zap or not getting as much good results. And the main thing to be attributed to this could be the lower output of armors, which is also why we've seen some H3s go off MPU H3 to running more charge-up builds. But I think the main thing is just H3 is a lot slower, and in the shooter meta we're in, where everything is really fast, it makes it a lot harder to play. And H3 is also kind of like a charger where you play very much off of that one burst potential, and good teams are very good at determining when they want to fight or peak H3D. And so H3 has a really hard time and has to play it much more aggressively to get picks. Support H3 might be able to do things more, and that's why I think this could potentially in future be higher. But right now, we haven't seen support H3s get any major results outside of a little bit with TikTok in the Western scene. But of course, TikTok doesn't play a ton competitively, so it's hard to tell. We haven't seen much from Japan, and a lot of H3s are playing Zap, so I can't really put it much higher for the time being, but it does have some potential. Both the new and fresh Squiffer are a bit better than the classic for two reasons. A, they have bombs, and B, they have better kit synergy. Classic Squiffer is great at armor output, but Squiffer needs to be aggressive. It's just part of how the weapon plays. It's your frontline charger. So giving it armor and point sensor really keeps it from doing too much. Even then, if it had a bomb, it would be higher. These things having auto and suction are a lot better. Baller and Inkjet still aren't amazing specials, and they do hold it back a bit. But they do work well for the weapon. If you're going to be playing this, you want to run some kind of aggressive comp, something that's going to be able to play with these specials or move forward really fast. I don't know, man. Squiffers just, they struggle. Quad shooter is still really hard for it to deal with. It's the main thing we're seeing. Armor and missiles can really hamper its fighting capability. It's not too bad. Full speed charging in the air is really helpful for its mobility. It's still a solid paint. So, I mean, I could see these going higher or lower. They have currently been on a bit of the decline. I know Takoban, the Japanese Squiffer, has been disliking the weapon lately, and I know Leo, the person in the Western scene, has not been saying anything positive about it, so that's not a good sign, but we'll have to see. I still think these kits are fine, so maybe people could do things with it more in future, we'll see. Leader and Firefin in the same tier. Now, Leader is the much better zones weapon because it paints, and even with 190p it's way cheaper than 220. MPU and the extra range is really good on it. So if this was zones only, then this weapon would be higher and Firefin would be lower. But because this is all modes and Firefin is better on the other three modes slightly, this is why it's here. Chargers are still really struggling with the high amount of special spam that we're seeing, shooters being really mobile, just not peaking. So it's another thing where, yeah, quad shooter really hurts this weapon class, and mainly the high special output is honestly something that gives chargers a super hard time. And we haven't seen as much from chargers lately as we have previously, so the weapons are falling off a little bit. I think E-Leader is going to fall off harder because we're seeing more Jet Squelcher, and I'll get to that later. And Jet is just going to special spam the crap out of the sniper player and then outpaint them while keeping their distance. So it's a pain to play charges right now, honestly. That's just how it is. But the weapons are still pretty solid. They still put a lot of pressure, so they still are threatening. You just have to be really good with it. Both Buckets and Machine. I debated this a little bit, but I'm going to put these all here. Machine has the best job of fighting the short-range shooters. Like, I think it has the easiest time applying pressure, especially with Fizzy Bomb. But man, this thing is just held back by Splashdown. Not having a special really sucks, and none of the meta weapons right now struggle at shooting Splashdown down, like, even remotely. Almost no weapons do in general, but especially right now, like, shooters can just turn the camera upward and they'll be fine. Nothing here kills super slowly. And I mean, the main weapon doesn't paint too much either. It's fine at slaying, but again, shooters are very good at picking when they want to take fights and forcing fights with specials. Armor is not a huge deal for Machine, but it's still pretty good against it. I think Machine is still very situational. It's still very nice in tower, rain. It's kind of like an all modes pretty solid weapon, but I think it definitely struggles a bit. As for Bucket and Soda, they definitely struggle a good bit more because they're really based around kills. Basically, the development for sloshers right now is either you play with a QR team and try to run over the quad shooters because you can fight better than them, and like not keep them from getting specials, which I think most of Splatoon 2's maps just don't allow you to do that, because they're just way too limited to approach on. Or you play charge up and you play for abusing burst rush and that being good in fights. But again, Soda doesn't paint super well and it's 210p. V-Bucket is a little bit better. I think you can run LD suction spam and that could be more useful in a lot of situations, and I think missiles are very good right now. But I do think it has a hard time competing with the other missile weapons because high missile output is really valuable right now and Bucket isn't as good as doing it as weapons we'll see later in the list. I think if other missile weapons were higher points for special, V-Bucket would have more of a niche. But, I mean, Bucket's, again, still very solid kill option, still high damage. If you run it around, like, 30 damage weapons, it could be very useful. The kits are still solid. It's just killing 4-shooter is really hard. And when we get to these top tiers, it's mostly going to be, can these weapons deal with the main meta 4-shooter comp? And right now, it's not super certain for Buckets. Oh boy, Nautilus. This weapon for a while was so hated in the Western scene. It was really good for a while, everyone hated it, everyone thought it was too good at killing, it still had good painting range, solid paint, solid inkjet output, and then K52 happened, and everything changed. Now, K52 is definitely a big part of this, because 52 is really good at survivability, and it's part of why you play around like missile and armor support. You keep it alive, you pump specials out, and everything is really mobile, everything has specials to live. They inkjet you, you're just gonna press armor, you're gonna press booyah, you're gonna press bubble. But I think the real problem with Nautilus that people are finally realizing, that I have said for like a year now, is that it has to compete with Foil Squeezer. And Nauta is an insanely good main weapon, but Foil Squeezer is on another level. And I will get to that later, so I won't say too much right now. But Foil Squeezer, just for the argument versus not, has a similar kill time. I believe it's a little bit slower, but it kills in 3 shots with perfect RNG and more range. And you know, it doesn't have to charge. So, yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. Both the weapons are still really good. It's not that much better. But Foil Squeezer is not only the slightly better main weapon, but it has the slightly better kit. And that's why I think more Nautilus players are going to start playing Squeezer. And that's just how things are right now. I think the main places you would use Nautilus is Tower and Rainmaker, where the kit is very strong, because Suction and Inkjet is the best kit you can have in those 2 modes, arguably, at least in Rainmaker, and it works really well for an aggressive weapon like Naut. So if you want to play around Inkjet and mid-distance pressure, then I think it works super well for Nautilus. But it really is going to struggle in zones and clams right now, and even then against specific comps, like rapid comps, jet comps, Naut can have a hard time. Custom Dually Squelchers I will talk about when we cover VDS because it is the better kit. The main problem with Custom Dually Squelcher is it is 220 rain, which takes a long time to get, even with how well Squelchers paints. And the Splat Bomb uses a good bit of ink tank, not too much for most weapons, but Squelcher is such an ink-hungry weapon that it can't use bomb as much, and so it doesn't really benefit. It is like the only weapon that doesn't mind not having a bomb as much, because you can't use a bomb as much as you can other weapons, because the main weapon and the dodge rolls both use so much ink. And last in our S tier is the Camo Tensabrella, and Camo is, I don't know, man. Camo's kit is good against the meta. That's part of what gives it an opportunity. Hammer can be nice against 52, it can be nice against bubbles, it can eat bombs, so you can do a thing where you hammer rush next to your launch tent shield, and the hammer will eat the bombs, and the tent shield will eat the shots. It's a really insane combo. I think Camo 10 is the best purely because its kit works the best at countering the meta, but bomb spam and special spam are still a big problem for 10, and mainly, 52 is a walking counter. The wall will break the shield. They can booyah to break your shield, and then they can throw another wall. A 52 will outlive you, outspecial you, and ruin you from taking space, while 52 can also play to take space, because K52 is a dumb weapon. The main thing is, can camo players get better at dealing with K52? And right now, we haven't seen it. I think we might see it more in future, but that's a big problem with it right now. Alright, S+, we'll start simple, ends up 89, and K-Shot. 89 has a bit more reliable paint, because it has Auto Bomb, which uses less of the ink tank, but K-Shot has the better bomb and a bit worse paint and mobility. K-Shot is better for Tower Rain. 89 is better for zones and clams. These are your missile support options. These are not played as a frontline anymore. Like, I'm sorry, if you play K-Shot like a frontline, you're not playing the weapon correctly. You play it in solo and it's fun for you, good for you. If you play in a team environment, this thing is meant to be a more supportive weapon. That's what it's good at right now. You missile to enable the actual better Slayers that will be higher up in this list, because of factors I'll get to later. They're the better Slayer options. Support shot has been the better shot for years, and especially in this meta, I think it is the most important one to play it like a support and not a frontline. It's great for missile output and helping your team. They're support weapons. They're pretty good. Bamboo. Now, this is my bias putting Bamboo higher than the other Chargers, because admittedly, results-wise, it should be down here, but I think Bamboo has more potential, and it's for a few reasons. It has missile. MPU damage is nice against the quad shooter. It's still something you have to respect. I think the main weapon is still fairly solid. Now, yes, it can struggle with special output, it can struggle competing with VJet, Flow Squeezer can deal with it fine, K52 can still play around wall, but Bamboo still has good object damage. It's still a really nice 99.9 weapon. In fact, it's the best 99.9 weapon in the game right now. And I think it's just really overall solid. It's just that there aren't as many Bamboo players. I think if more Bamboo players were really trying to push the weapon, there would be more results with it. But right now, there just aren't as many, especially in Japan. A lot of them just don't play the game anymore. But I still think Bamboo is solid. I think it has a good amount of potential. I think it is stupid with MPU, but it does struggle a little bit against specials, so yeah. Admittedly, if you play quad shooter comp well, you can counter how Bamboo plays, but you have to play very perfectly to not mess up against Bamboo at all. Like, the margin for error against Bamboo is just very, very low. So it's still, even at top level, you will see people mess up against it. I think Tri-Slosher is fairly solid. It can paint decently well, burst bombs are nice, it can fight quad shooter. It still struggles a bit with the specials, but Tri has always been better at dealing with it, especially since it has burst bomb, it has good mobility. It's pretty solid. I think this is arguably the best bucket right now, and I think it could even be higher if people push it. Admittedly, the main problem with Tri is different than other ones, which is you can counterpick Tri, go to longer range stages, and play more specific comps to deal with it, rather than just a meta comp. There's the one time where it's more adapting to Tri is the problem, rather than just the meta craps on it right now. So, I mean, I think Tri is still pretty fine. I think this is your best, like, pure Slayer 100% option. But Tri is also pretty adaptable, so I think we might see Tri players being more supportive at times. It's hard to say, but I really think it's important if you are playing Tri is that you have to have a comp built around it. You can't just run 3-shooter plus Tri. You have to run a comp that Tri actually wants to play with, and I think F2N is doing this best right now. And the main way they're doing it best right now is they're running Blob with it. And here's my hot take. We got Blob in the S+ tier. Alright, so what's the deal with Blob? Blob has good bomb rush output, it has good distance pressure, it's not too slow to be outpaced, and it's great at controlling areas. I don't think people have really optimized this weapon fully. I am the agreeer of Blob has not been pushed to its full potential yet, and I think with F2N we're starting to see it the most because F2N is playing Blob-specific comps. They did stuff in the recent tournament with Blob plus Shot plus Tri, and playing the game very differently around the high bomb rush and pressure output of Blob, the high missile output from the K-Shot, and the aggro pressure of Tri. Blob really limits, better than any other weapon, the space you can stand in an area even if it's behind a wall. Even if it's behind a wall. And that's the main thing it can do well. If you have people who can follow up on Blob pressure effectively, then it's really good. But if your team doesn't follow up on it, here's the truth. And again, this is something that I know because we have abused this in the latest tournament. If you do not have a team that plays off of Blob properly, Blob will be a special farm for the other team. So it's incredibly important that whatever the Blob does, people need to play off it, because if you don't, you can absolutely exploit Blob and just farm off it. and then the blob can't just run forward as hard as other weapons can. You have to play around this weapon perfectly, and it's insane. But if you play around it wrong, you will just feed another good team specials. That's the truth about blob, in my opinion. I think it is really good, but you have to really know how to play around it. It's like the weapon in the game that you have to know what you want to do with it the most out of anything else. Mini spotling, because let's go with another hot take. Mini is really good right now. Mini does not have a bomb for damaging walls, but it has more range, good mobility than other shooters, burst bombs, and honestly the main weapon, especially with Object Shredder, has really high damage per second. It is 210p missile, but it has good painting range, and it still can get a lot of specials. I think the main thing with Mini, not as much as Blob, but you need a comp around it. I think you want to run Mini with stuff like Armor Rapid or Try or no armor comps. Like, I think Mini is better as the main support. Now, maybe it could be as, like, a secondary support. Maybe it can work with Zap fine, depending on how you play it. Like, K-Shot Zap, you can have the Zap be the more aggressive player at times, and I think you could do the same thing with Mini. But we have to see. Right now, Bagel is the only Mini player at top level, so... I mean, a lot of this could be biased, but Mini is just a solid main weapon with a solid kit, and when you really think about it, there's no reason it shouldn't be able to be good. The main thing is really just not having a suction compared to the other short-range missile weapons, but again, have the right comp, and I think it is perfectly capable of playing around that. I think Mini is easily the best spotling right now. And yeah, there are other modes, but I think Mini is still fine in other modes. I think the main thing I could struggle with is tower control, but I think it's fine in other modes, honestly. Viduli has better missile output because it's 190p, it still paints very well. The weapon still has pretty insane mobility. Short-range shooters with swim speed are a little bit faster and able to close the gap against it, but you still have to respect it. Squelcher is still really good for off-angle pressure. It plays kind of like Umbrella to where you can stall people. The weapon has a lot of potential. Squelcher always has, but its movement and a solid painting range and its dodge rolls just don't have end lag. So I mean, that will always be insane. The main weapon is still a bit inconsistent with RNG. It is still very gear dependent with the amount of MPU you need, but I think the weapon still has a lot of potential. And yes, as we can see with this tier list, there's a lot of missile weapons in S+, because having a missile weapon on your team is really important right now, unless if you're running a backline comp. And backline comps aren't as good as 4-shooter comps, so yeah, aka you want missile a lot. Alright, and I have seen everyone say that Brella is the question mark weapon, and to those people, you are wrong. It's not. Brella's down here. There's no secret thing about Brella. Brella is just fine. It's perfectly good. It can counter 4 shooters. You're right, but you need mobility Brella, and that's what makes this hard. You can't stall forever because you need mobility. If you don't have mobility, short-range shooters will run you down because they'll be way faster than you, especially since some of them are light class, which means they have more swim and run speed. Specials are going to run you over, because they're going to have specials whenever they fight you. You have to deal with missile, armor, etc. Brella's gear dependency is probably the main problem with it. If it could run more main saver or object shredder with mobility, I think it'd be a bit better. And right now we have seen Brella try. Like, there's been a little bit of Brella's trying in Japan. I haven't played it too much in the Western scene, admittedly, but I haven't had a comp around Brella that much yet, so I can't really do too much in terms of trying to fight top teams with it. I think, personally, as a Brella main, I think it has potential to be X tier. I think it has potential to be very good, but Brella is insanely hard. You have to shield and stall people at the right times. You have to get a good amount of bomb rush output, even though you're 200p and an ink-hungry weapon, and you still have to play very well against shooters, which is a bit easier. You do win those matchups. That's the main thing Brella has. It can stall, and it can win pretty much every weapon class above it. The problem is that it has to play near perfectly to do so. Dealing with specials is hard. The weapon is very ink-hungry. It doesn't always work all the time, because online, which I'm not factoring into the equation, but that's why there's less Brella players. So, I mean, can it be top tier? Can it be the very best of the best? Yeah, I think it has the most potential of anything to start changing the quad shooter meta. But it's really hard, so I think it's going to take a long time. And why would you really put all this time into it when you could just play Neo Splash? And it's a lot easier. So, it's hard to find the incentive, I think. And that leaves us with Armor Rapid. I almost put this weapon in S tier, because I think it's just not that insane, honestly. Like, Jet is just better, and I will get to it when I talk about Jet. So Rapid Pro basically has poking potential to bully other midliners. So if you're going against stuff like Chargers and Nautilus, and even sometimes Squeezer, it's really good. But if you're going against Quad Shooter or Jet Squelcher, it can be difficult. Rapid still struggles with special spam and being slow. A lot of people who are picking it up picked it up because they have weapons that deal with those problems, and they're gonna learn that, yeah, this weapon still deals with it. The main solution to Armor Rapid is to get off your midline comp, and to play a comp that can actually move around the map and then run it over. Like, Armor Rapid cannot defend itself very well. It does not have a torpedo, and it is slower than a regular Rapid, so it does not have a quick one-shot combo. It has to play around wall and play around teammates. It still struggles at dealing with special stuff like missile and armor will keep you from fighting it. Armor Rapid is good at poking armor, yes, but not if you're dealing with missile. So if a team is coordinated and pushing in properly using the missile to move the Rapid, it's not going to be as good. It's still very solid, it's still good at poking people, controlling space, gets a solid amount of armors, but it still doesn't paint very well, it still struggles at getting rushed down, and Jet Squelcher is still a better weapon. Still very solid, though. Oh, look! Look! We have to talk about top tiers, and look at the only class that's remaining. Oh, man! Look at all the other weapon classes, they're gone! We only have shooters left, so let's get into the very best of the best. Neo Splash, this is your jack-of-all-trades, short-range weapon. You have light class, you have perfect jump accuracy, you have the best paint for your range value, you have a 210p bomb rush, you have burst bomb for long-distance poking. Splash can do everything. It works really great with 52, that's part of why we see it so much. It can go in very well with stuff like missiles. The weapon is fast, it can kill quickly, it's got MPU, it's got paint, it can be more supportive if you need. We've seen supportive Splash from Ice winning with Starburst for the right playstyle. Splash is just a really versatile, very solid weapon. There isn't too much to say about it, it just does everything. The only thing it can maybe struggle with sometimes is fighting 52 because it can't break wall, but even then you don't always have to. So most of the time you should just be focused on fighting other weapons. Zap 85, I don't have much to say about this either. This is your armor weapon that is actually good. It has mobility, it has light class, it has a solid kill time, good object damage, suction bomb, you can run LDE. It's not too high points for special for armor at 200p. This is your mobile support that can play really back, it can play really front, it's very versatile. It's just the best supportive option, like Junior is limited in fighting, Armor Rapid can get rushed down, H3D is slow and higher points for special. Zap doesn't really have any overlying weaknesses, and I'm not saying Zap needs to be nerfed, I'm saying other armor supports are f***ing terrible, so other armor supports need to be better in this game, and then it would be at least a little bit better, but right now Zap is just the only good armor weapon in the game. Custom Jet Squelcher, this gun is a little bit stupid in Tower and Rainmaker, especially Rainmaker with its high amount of ray output, but the main weapon is a lot more solid than people give it credit for. It's very good at chip damaging for your team, a lot like Rapid, except it can actually move. It paints unbelievably well, and it has the best painting range of any shooter, which means it can paint from very far away and be fine. You have long-distance paint, so you won't overlap with your end zap, which means you get more specials overall. And just burst bombs. You get burst bomb tick damage to help you in fights or help your team. C-Jet is the ultimate supportive backline weapon. The ray helps your team move in with it because you ray and your team pushes with it while the ray displaces people. The main weapon can fight for itself, it paints well, it burst bombs for its teammates, it can poke at long distance. It's basically a long distance support that can also fight and it can move. It's just really good. Similarly, V-Jet does not have as much potential with the sub-weapon because it is missed, which is still okay with it. It still can help a little bit, nowhere near as much as burst bomb. It makes the weapon a little bit harder to fight for itself. But instead of ray, which is more situational, you get missile spam. And this weapon is the best missile spam weapon because you're not painting over your zap, you're putting more distance pressure, and you can still help your team. You have the painting range. This allows you to get missiles while your zap can also get armor. It's ridiculous. If this thing had a better sub-weapon, it would be unbelievably broken right now. But the special output is just so necessary because that's how you move in this game. This weapon being good is also why all of these weapons are not good. Because, oh, they have a charger? Missile spam. Oh, they want to have a bamboo? Missile spam it. We could outpoke these weapons. Like, we can paint more than them. So I could just paint around, I can help my team more, and then I can special the backliner, and then my team can run at them, take the space, and the backline can't play the game. And then when we're not peeking the backline because we don't want to feed, we could just paint over it. V-Jet's dumb. The existence of V-Jet actually ruins the feel of so many backlines in the game. This thing should be 220, 250, 280, 300p. It's so dumb. And it hasn't been good in so many metas because missile spam hasn't been as necessary as it is now. But with where we are now, V-Jet is unbelievably necessary to the game. And that's why it's here. This is what question mark means, and I want to explain it. These two weapons are better than everything else. Obviously. We know these are the best 2 weapons in the game. But why are they in their own tier? Not only because they are the best, but because they define the meta. Everything else here, these weapons here, and even lower, are based around what you want to play with and play against these 2 weapons. That is how meta works, and I need people to understand that. Why is there missile spam? Because missile spam works well with this. Why are we playing Neosplash? Because Neosplash works well with this. Why are we not playing Charger, for instance? Because, oh, you have to deal with wall, you have to deal with bubbles, and if we're going to deal with these 2 things, you might as well run missile spam with it. These 2 weapons make the meta what it is. 52 can paint safely at an insane painting distance because of the buff. It 2-shots anything, it has a wall for durability, and wall and booyah ruin buckets, they ruin blasters, they ruin so many things that cannot damage wall, because if you can't break wall, and you don't have a bomb or the ink efficiency to break wall, you can't fight 52. And that'd be okay if the 52 existing didn't mean everything, but if the 52's pumping out a booyah bomb every 5 seconds, contesting zone for free and controlling space by itself, then it's really insane. And speaking of booyah bombs, something those weapon classes still can't fight, if you somehow manage to break the wall, they're gonna booyah bomb, throw the booyah, then they're gonna throw another wall. 52's killing power is not the most important thing about it, it's its paint and pressure. You exist and you cannot die, and the 2-shot threatens that. And so whenever you play against a 52, you need to play things that can deal with 52. And Squeezer is just an insane main weapon. And again, I don't really have a huge problem with Squeezer being this good because we need actual good main weapons in this game. But why would you play other midlines? You're giving this thing 1 frame slower than K-Pro's kill time, but way more range, more than Nautilus, almost as much as Jet. It has perfect accuracy. It has a painting mode. It has the bomb combo. Yeah, it's 200p. Who cares? It still gets it plenty. You can poke bombs. You can bubble combo anyone close range. Bubbles can put pressure. The main weapon is insane. Like, it's so good. I don't think it's as big a problem as 52 because 52's playstyle is part of what hurts everything because it's impossible for things to fight it. Whereas the problem with Squeezer is we've nerfed every other good main weapon in this game. Oh, Brella could fight it before because Brella had better damage. Better nerf Brella. Oh, HVD had good armor output. Oh, we better nerf that. Chargers put a lot of pressure. Oh, we nerfed that. Machine was really good. Oh, we nerfed that. We nerfed Baller, so stuff like K-Rapid that counters it is going to get worse. We've nerfed Torpedo, so stuff like K-Rapid that counters it is going to get worse. We made backlines obsolete because of 52, so things that can outrange Squeezer isn't going to be there. Oh, and the biggest offender, Ballpoint! We have nerfed Ballpoint, and it was so nice for the game. It was so nice at dealing with Squeezer, and we killed it. Oh, and now there's Squeezer. We have over-nerfed so many main weapons in this game that now Squeezer, a good main weapon, has just killed everything else. Or not killed, but Squeezer just outclasses everything else. Basically, throughout patches after 3.0, we have nerfed main weapon power way too much to the point where stuff like Foil Squeezer doesn't really have a lot of things that can contest it. And the special is broken. People can realize this, right? This is not a Splatoon 2 special weapon. I talked about this in my specials list, so I won't talk about it forever. It is 3 shields that can randomly at any point spontaneously turn into a nuclear bomb that'll kill everyone in its approximate radius, even if you have ink armor on. Oh, damn, like, what's our only option to deal with bubble combo? Oh, well, you can know where they are and push them when they can't sit in bubbles. What do you use for that? Missiles. Oh, great. Missile, 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 missile. There's the missiles! Oh, what's missile also good for? Breaking Booyah Bomb? Forcing 52 to move away from its wall? Guess we better have missile weapons. We're also running no backline now because we've killed all the other backlines, so now it's just Jet Squelcher? We better run missile. Splatoon 2 has, in a way, dug itself into a hole. Like, it has nerfed other weapons and playmaking power of so many options so badly that when you have stuff like 52 that's good at fighting things with its kit, or Squeezer which is good at fighting things with its main weapon, and having bubble combo, you just run out of options, and now the only thing to deal with it is either mega specific comps that you have to play very perfectly with for stuff like Brella or Mini or Blob or Try, or you just run special spam, which is the thing that people with 52 and Squeezer want to run anyway. So now, we have a bunch of special spam. No matter what comp you play, it's going to have some form of special spam. And that's where we are right now. So with that all being said, that is the current unfortunate state of Splatoon 2. That's the hole they've dug themselves into, and that is the final part of this tier list. If you've enjoyed and you want to see more Splatoon stuff from me, you can be sure to subscribe or follow me on Twitch TV/ProChara, and I will see you all later.